Riley sat alone in the kitchen, her fifth cup of coffee, already cold at 3 in the morning, and still Nathan hadn't returned. It wasn't the first time he disappeared on a drinking binge, but lately it felt like a constant cycle. Women, Riley thought to herself, always fretted about husbands who came home late and suspected infidelity, but not her. Nathan's only affair was with alcohol. With a heavy sigh, she acknowledged her distaste for his excessive drinking, but felt powerless to stop it. Nathan blamed her, claiming she was controlling and unwilling to listen. Their different careers had never been an issue until their children left for college. Changing the dynamic of their relationship, Riley had begged Nathan to stop discussing her profession, often ending in tears, but it seemed he just couldn't help himself. Riley's husband. Once a sharp and promising lawyer, he had become a heavy drinker. He used to confine his drinking to the home or a local bar, but now he drank anywhere, anytime, with impunity. Riley saw the pattern worsen. Her husband had completely lost confidence in himself, and nothing seemed to be able to pull him out of this funk. When Nathan got drunk, he turned into a raging storm, trying to assert his dominance over Riley, but his attempts fell flat. Thanks to her job, Riley knew more than the basics of self-defense. It hurt her to see the man she loved trying to hurt her. It felt wrong, and she sensed that if it continued, she'd have no choice but to walk away from the relationship, despite the years they'd spent together. The sound of the key turning in the lock signaled Nathan's arrival home. Riley silently hoped he'd go straight into the living room and crash on the sofa. A routine when he'd had too much to drink, but her wish went unanswered. Instead, he made his way to the kitchen and turned on the light with a drunken grin. Well, look who's back. Our esteemed chef, Nathan slurred. Aren't you tired of this? Nathan asked Riley, tired. How could I be? I'm just having fun, but you, my dear, have the weight of the world on your shoulders with your serious job. You're the boss, and I'm just a simple man, he retorted. Riley winced. She'd never bragged about her work and always tried to be supportive of Nathan, so it baffled her how he could suddenly see her as superior, both physically and intellectually. This new attitude puzzled her because Nathan had never shown jealousy or insecurity, even about her successful career. She couldn't help but wonder what had caused this change in him. Riley was determined to unravel the mystery and help Nathan understand that they were equals, regardless of their differences. She became more and more convinced that something or someone must have influenced Nathan's new attitude. He'd never been one to compare himself negatively to others. Nathan, enough is enough. You can't go on like this every day. Don't you hate it yourself? Riley asked Nathan, hiccuping, fumbling with the faucet, spilling water everywhere, then throwing the glass and almost stumbling to the floor. The boss is home. He slammed his fist down on the table and collapsed unconscious. Fighting back tears, Riley leaned over her husband. Listen, if you don't want to do this the right way, we'll do it another way. She dialed the phone. Vincent is sending the car and some discreet helpers to my house now, Riley instructed Mrs. Brooks. You have a body that needs to be disposed of. Vincent almost chuckled. Riley replied. Nathan was unconscious when he was put into the car. When he woke up, he found himself in a hallway facing Riley. What's going on? He asked. She nonchalantly replied, nothing much. Riley then told him that she had arranged for him to spend the night in a cell with a group of women who were serving long sentences. She added that 3 of them had murdered their husbands because of Ailes' alcoholism. Riley, are you crazy? Too late, dear, you never listened, she said. As she turned away exhausted, the door slammed shut, and she heard gasping from inside. She thought she didn't care anymore, or at least she tried not to. For 5 years, Riley had run the women's prison with an iron hand wrapped in a velvet glove. Her leadership skills and resolute nature were well known, even though she seemed G. She possessed an unyielding character with a clear vision and high standards. She set the bar high not only for herself, but for her team. Riley's dedication and willingness to make tough decisions made her an effective leader. Known as a leader who tolerated no nonsense and put the safety and welfare of those in her care above all else, her unwavering determination had earned her the respect of both her staff and the inmates, establishing her as a respected and accomplished figure in her field. Meanwhile, Nathan had sobered up a bit. Now there was only one thought running through his mind. His wife's patience is not limited. Oh, what a handsome man they've thrown in here with us. One woman said something must be wrong with our Riley. They approached him. They were all serving different sentences. So who the hell are you? What did you do to annoy our princess so much that she assigned you to us? One of them asked. Nathan realized that they weren't going to attack him right away, so he smiled slightly. I'm your princess husband. What? No, that can't be true, the women said in disbelief. Nathan reached into his pocket for his driver's license and showed it to them. They shook their heads and gave the license back to him. What the hell are you doing here? Then Nathan smiled. I guess my wife is trying to fix me. She has her own way of doing things. One of the inmates looked at him thoughtfully. My husband also wanted me to keep quiet about his drinking problem. And where is he now? She said with a shrug and sat down at the table. Nathan looked at her puzzled. He thought that since they hadn't attacked him, they would all sit together and talk about what a bad wife Riley was, but the conversation took an unexpected turn. Another woman tugged on his sleeve. Let's get you a cup of coffee. You look like you had a rough night. It looks like we won't be disturbed until morning, so you can relax. I'm Phoenix, and this is Lauren. She introduces herself, gesturing to the woman sitting at the table. Over there are Kendall and Tanya, she added, pointing to 2 more women. I'm Nathan, nice to meet you, he said, and sat down at the table with them. They gave him a cup of coffee that tasted like it hadn't been brewed for the first time. He took a sip and asked Lauren, So where is your husband? I'm sorry, but you didn't finish your story. Lauren turned to him. He's finished and I'm in here. My children are in the children's home. And what did alcohol have to do with it? Nathan asked. Do you really want to know? I'll tell you if you're interested. She said. He hesitated, then shrugged. Okay, if you insist. My husband, he started drinking, couldn't stop. Even though we were about to celebrate our 10th anniversary, at first I didn't understand. Then I found out his work buddy was taking him to after-hours casinos, the kind with slot machines and free drinks. Her voice cracked. I begged him, pleaded with him to stop, told him it wouldn't end. Well, he just got drunk. Yell at me to shut up. I'm the man, I know what I'm doing. That's all he would say. Then he lost big, really big. They came after him and threatened us. He didn't tell me, he just drank more to forget that he died of whatever it is that too much booze does to you. And then they came for me, because the kids said we owed them the apartment in addition to the money. I told them to get lost. He grabbed one of them. My son said if I didn't cooperate, we'd all be finished, because something snapped in me. The fear in my son's eyes. I just grabbed the kitchen knife and went in. I don't even know what to call it. One was on the floor before they knew what hit them. The other one, I also got him out in the hallway in self-defense, but her voice trailed off. It won't bring my children back. Nathan sat there stunned. He'd read stories like this before. Never thought he'd be next to someone who actually lived them. The silence hung heavy in the cell. Another woman, Annie, broke it with her own story of hardship. He wanted to say something comforting, but every word felt like a cliché. His desire to drink had faded, replaced by the echo of a young woman's sobs. She started talking about how it wasn't her fault, about her mom dying and her dad's new wife and the debts, something about being given away to pay for it all, and how desperate she was. Nathan couldn't just sit there. This sounds like self-defense. He burst out. Phoenix gave him an almost amused look. You sound like a lawyer to a girl like Kendall. She wouldn't have the money to get one, and the guy she attacked had connections. Frustration gnawed at him. A thought was forming, but he couldn't quite grasp it yet. Kendall. My name is Nathan. I used to be a lawyer. I quit a while ago, which was stupid, but can you tell me what happened? Every single detail? Names of anyone who might know something about it. I can't promise I can fix it, but I'll try. I swear I'll do my best. Kendall looked at him startled and then at Phoenix. The older woman seemed to be the one in charge. Phoenix gave Nathan a stern look. You will keep your word. No false hopes for this girl. She's had enough of that already. I said I will do what I can. Nathan insisted. Meanwhile, Riley felt overwhelmed. She messed up badly. Nathan would be furious, might go right back to drinking. For a moment she thought about having him brought to her, but then no, that wouldn't help. Instead, she called Johnson and a couple of guards, then headed for the cell. Riley wasn't sure what she would find there. Maybe those women would attack her on sight. She froze as the door swung open. The cell was quiet. Nathan sat at a table. The prisoners around him were talking, even smiling a little. Nathan turned and saw her. Oh, hey, Riley. He sounded normal, not angry at all. Riley was speechless. This was all wrong. What's going on? She managed to ask. Nathan got up and left the cell, waving goodbye to the women as they wished him luck. Even the guards looked confused. This cell was usually the worst for Nathan. Are you okay? Riley asked as they hurried down the hall. Yeah, I'm fine. Listen, we have to get home. I need to clean up. There's someone I need to find. Riley felt lost. Her husband had struggled with drinking for so long. Yet here he was, weak, sober, and almost like a stranger. It was a good change, but so sudden that it left her with a dizzying sense of hope and confusion. She didn't know how it had happened, but maybe they had a chance now. She had to understand what happened in that cell. Nathan, you keep leaving, and is there something you're not telling me? He turned to her. The young woman in your cell, Kendall. She shouldn't be there. Her life has been ruined, and it's the stepmother and the man she hurt that belong in prison. I'm sorry I didn't tell you earlier, but I'm deep into her case. File, trying to see if there's any way I can help. Riley just stared at him. Then a smile spread across her face. Wow, my Nathan really is back, she said, running to hug him tightly. I'm sorry, honey, I was such a fool, he said. Thank you for getting me back on track. For 6 long months, Nathan worked. He was obsessed, driven to see justice done in the retrial. When it finally came, it was all because of him. He found witnesses, people who could tell the real story. He even tracked down a corrupt doctor who'd lied at the first trial. It was hard. There were setbacks, but Nathan wasn't going to give up on this trial. it would be different, and he was determined to succeed. The verdict echoed through the courtroom, not guilty. Kendall swayed, tears streaming down her face. Too weak to stand, she sank into her chair, the weight of the past few years crushing her. Nathan was at her side in an instant, offering not only legal support, but a hand to hold an elderly woman who rushed into the chaos. Her own sobs mirrored those of Kendall's, "My little girl." She was choking. It was Kendall's grandmother, drawn there by news she thought too terrible to be true. The reunion was a tangle of grief and hope, of years lost and the promise of a future, however uncertain. Outside the courthouse, Nathan and Riley stood side by side, watching the scene unfold. "I've never been prouder of you," Riley said, her voice thick with emotion. Nathan smiled, but his exhaustion was obvious. He shouted and then disappeared into the crowd with a single, neatly written note, "The fireplace table reserved for 2 in the prison. They respect those who keep their word." Nathan laughed, the sound tired but genuine. "Well, Riley, looks like your girls are buying us dinner." He didn't mention the deeper implication that Phoenix and the others knew his fight for Kendall wasn't over. There were darker players behind her suffering who were still at large. Nathan slipped the note into his pocket. The walk back to the car was silent. Each of them was lost in thought. He glanced at Riley, saw the worry etched into her face. Yet there was an undeniable flicker of something else in his exhaustion. Not excitement, but a fierce determination. He'd fought his own demons, found a way back from the brink. He'd started this one seeking redemption for Kendall and himself, but as he looked out onto the bustling city street, he realized something was bigger than both of them. The women in this prison, the countless others unseen. They would no longer be victims. He wouldn't let them be, and maybe, just maybe, they held the key to bringing down the real villains.